Alrighty, so folks, welcome back to another episode. We've just been chatting because Ray and I know each other. We go way back, but yeah, special guest. We do this blockchain for good thanks to Fableration, our sponsor, but the AI part has been missing as part of that. So bringing that back, the AI for good component. We've got Raymond Sun here, mate. I'm going to get you to do your introduction, and I'll add anything that I think is pertinent. But if you could tell the good folks online what it is that you do, man.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, and good to be here. So my name is Ray, based in Sydney. I'm a technology lawyer, and I'm also a developer, and under my alias Techie Ray. So in my daytime, I advise tech clients, both from the startup end all the way to the big end of town, with all sorts of digital transformation projects. These days, I've been specialized in the AI side for the past 4 or 5 years, and I've been advising around the regulatory and the contracting side of AI. And also, I'm focused in the Australia, Singapore, and China markets. And on the side, I develop, I code, I build my own apps. I've built apps ranging from an AI app that analyzes your dance moves all the way to a platform that tracks AI laws around the world, to a website that helps you build your own interactive map trackers. So yeah, it's just a bit of everywhere, but yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, you were just doing stuff here in Australia, but now you're an international ray of mystery. So I think it's
Thanks,
really cool
man.
that that's expanded, bro.
Yeah.
There's also your involvement in the community side of things. Tell us
Yeah.
more about that.
Yeah, well, so you're also part of the story, Mark, but I'm one of the directors of the Data Science and AI Association of Australia. It's basically a community, it's a non-for-profit association that runs community events targeted for the AI and data scientist community in Australia. So we run monthly meetups, we run content all around this, just really trying to educate the community on these things and just trying to connect the technical people with the business and the legal people. And that's how I knew Mark. I knew Mark from his other DeFi association, but also through the data science. Actually, it was Mark who brought me on to that association. So yeah, that's that's how we know each other. Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't, keep talking about and seeing like the blockchain events that we've been running over the last nearly 4 years. Oh my goodness. And all the AI knowledge that you had, it just made sense to bring you on board there. But just taking it a bit of a step back because you were doing AI stuff and we were in the association with AI stuff before generative AI. I think
Yeah, we're we're in a way the veterans pre-ChatGPT vets. Yeah.
absolutely. And it was like traditional, it's machine learning. It's
yeah.
Paul, one of the original founders, has Sydney Machine Learning. So there's a lot of data stuff. There's a lot of like traditional AI before the generative AI stuff. But you mentioned there's something, and I think it was one of the most impressive things that I'd seen. Apart from you being like a former breakdancer yourself, former, or maybe you still do stuff on the side, I don't know. But I remember the app that you showed that was just highly impressive. And folks, this was not ChatGPT. It was nothing to do with that. But you built just something that looked really cool and ended up being used by many.
Yeah.
Can you describe that a little bit? Because I think that's really
Yeah. So my niche angle to AI is dance AI. And it was all based on, image recognition, computer vision. I think that was the key, what the poster child of AI before ChatGPT. It's sort of, so yeah, as Mark mentioned, I do dance on the side, and before COVID, I would attend dance classes regularly, but COVID, there was lockdown, stuck at home, and I was trying to learn dance off YouTube videos, but it just doesn't hit. Like, it's just different. So I just wanted to, at that time, I was also just learning, machine learning and pose estimation. And I thought, why not build an application that uses those machine learning algorithms to analyze your dance moves in a very statistical manner. So it can analyze the angles, it can analyze how similar you dance to the original dance video you're trying to cover. And I recorded that entire project as a vlog when I posted our vlog on YouTube, and it went pretty viral. And it went even more viral when I applied the algorithm to analyze K-pop dancers, because K-pop's known for synchronized dancing. And that sort of stuff, I found a way to be able to put a number to that. And so I was basically ranking all these K-pop groups based on how synchronized their dance is. And it went viral in Asia. I was actually featured in a South Korean science magazine, basically equivalent to Nature Geography. It's basically just the AI science magazine, just talking about my work in K-pop and AI. And over time, I then repurposed my algorithm into a mobile phone app called Sync Trainer, where basically it's an app you can download from the App Store. People can then record a video of a group dancing, and then it will analyze how synchronized the group is, and also show you screenshots where the group could improve on their moves. And it's quite a nifty tool for the dance community. And my algorithm was also actually used by a Japanese entertainment company when they were trying to film a reality TV show. And they used my algorithm to then, the challenge was for a boy band group to learn a dance in 5 minutes and see how well they dance. And they used the algorithm to assess that. It's crazy. I've never been to Japan, but my stuff has apparently traversed borders and been in other countries. So,
Mate,
yeah.
You're gonna have to go. Putting back the lawyer and the blockchain hat, because you were coming to the events because there was interest there.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of regulatory type events that have happened in Japan around the crypto and blockchain side of things. But I digress. I'm sure that you'll be able to get over there, and people might see you and go, "Oh, you're the guy." And we've just thrown some images as people are watching this of your website, so you can check that out. That's right. The interesting thing was that, like, the virality, you found something that really was a big wave, right? And you really helped out that community. I think it's powerful. I saw one of the videos had like 1.8 million views.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands on some of the other ones. It's pretty crazy.
And like people have been filming reaction videos, like dancers using the app and filming their reaction to the app. I love it. It's just so fun to see the dance community in a way united over AI.
Mate, that is pretty powerful, and hopefully it inspires people that are watching this, whether they're interested in the reading, writing, publishing side of things, or they're in sports, or they're in, anything else, education, and because of the tools that are available nowadays, and we can get into that, it's just so much easier to develop. Like, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I can do now had it not been for all of the progress that's there. But let's bring it back to current present day. Now, your day today, you described there, you're a bit of a lawyer, not a bit of a, you are a lawyer, I apologize, but you also do, you help firms that are looking at AI regulation and stuff like that. Can you talk to me a bit about your day today, and then we'll dive into some of the AI stuff?
Yeah, so day to day, it depends on like the nature of the client, right? So I do a lot of work for startups. Often with startups, they're just about to launch a product and they want help with just setting up the business, also setting up the terms and conditions that protect the product and also protect the customer, also navigating through regulations, particularly privacy and IP, and also the consumer law. So it's a bit of like being a close advisor to them. You basically, pick up the phone when they have a question, and I try to do the most I can in my position to help with their legal queries. And if there's a query around, employment or corporate governance, I can then, refer them to a colleague that specializes in that space. But for me, I'm more focused on like the privacy, data, and also just helping, understand the technical requirements of the product and how that gives rise to legal considerations. Often, startups come to me, they show me their systems architecture diagram, and I look at that and assess whether that creates any privacy risks due to, how data flows from one process to another, and whether that process is based overseas. So it's a very nice mix of technical and legal. for the bigger end of town where I'm advising like the big tech companies, it often tends to be more around, internal transformation projects. So also, big banks, big telco companies, they want to implement a process that might potentially, automate a process, um, generate savings. And there's a lot of, bureaucratic process, a lot of risk assessments to go through, and I assist with that process. So often, whether it be drafting and advice that helps them shift the project down the line, or looking at negotiating the relevant supply contracts that go into building that system. So it's a good mix of these things. That's and also like the regulatory education. So of course, the space of AI regulations moving very fast. It's hard to keep track, and so I help my clients also just understand what's on the horizon, what's binding now, what's non-binding, and what are some new laws are about to come in. Yeah.
Mate, it's pretty impressive because I was going to say, just on that last note, you built this tool, and we'll get into
Yeah.
that next. But it's like you weren't, you know, you didn't have work say, hey, you need to build this, or a client say, hey, build this for us. You went out on the back of your own goodwill, your free time, and your passion for both law and AI, created something that has been cited, used, and if you've got any metrics, throw them at us. But like, I've seen so many people internationally recognize this, especially early in the days of generative AI, when it was seeming like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to keep up, not just with the updates, but updates mean nothing if the regulation isn't there to keep people up to date with all this kind of stuff. You built the global AI regulation tracker, throwing it up on screen here, and links in the show notes as well, folks. But can you just describe the origins of that? What inspired you, and what is it for people that may be living under a rock and haven't heard about this?
Yeah, so like it's often weird when people say, AI regulations their passion. It's such a niche area to be passionate about, but for me, there's a bit of a deep story behind it. So, as you guys can probably tell, I'm a person who likes build tech, robots, coding. That passion has started ever since I was a kid. I was always into robots and building my own games. My story into the law, it started really during like high school. I love reading detective novels, legal thrillers, and I studied legal studies in high school, and that really got me into, I really like to do law as a career. And so for most of my lifetime, I've been trying to like balance both the legal and the tech as two separate paths. I never thought they will ever combine in a way, but the combination came when during uni, I was, procrastinating, reading about, AI, the trolley problem. And then that sort of then started an interest into AI ethics. So I was just watching a lot of YouTube videos about people theorizing about the future of AI, the ethical problems in AI, self-driving vehicles. That was a really big thing back then. The big tech companies were just trying self-driving vehicles, and questions would pop up saying, if a car had to choose between running over an elderly person or running over a child, what would the car do? Like, these sort of questions really interested me. And when you go into AI ethics, you naturally, read about AI regulation. So I'm talking about the year 2018, 2019, that the concept of AI regulation was basically non-existent. Very few examples. Probably the big example that was just brimming back then was the draft AI Act. Back then, it was only a proposal, and no one knew if that would ever become an actual law that it is today. But that got me into a further rabbit hole of just looking into AI laws, because at the end of the day, it's a combination of tech and law. And I've been reading this space. I've been writing my own personal notes in a diary, but I never shared this knowledge or content. I just thought it was just something that only I would care about and not many others. Until, when I, during COVID, started, going on LinkedIn, and I thought, just post some stuff on LinkedIn. And I just started posting mini bite-sized updates on what's happening in AI regulation and just my own personal thoughts. Not very limited engagement. It's a very niche topic, but I still kept doing that because I really enjoyed the process. And then when ChatGPT came out, all of a sudden, like, AI regulation just became topic number 51 all the way to like topic number 1 on people's list. And then the LinkedIn algorithm gods then blessed my content and started bumping my content up. And so that further motivated me to write more. And then there was a stage where I finally had a lot of posts on AI regulation. And I thought it'd be a nice way to sort of categorize them into countries, into dates. And that's what I thought, why not build a website that just keeps track of all my content? And then when I was thinking of the website, I wanted to make it as easy as possible for myself, but also for other users, just for one big map, click on a country, and it's like a Wikipedia style, just a one page of what's happening. And there wasn't there was no other website that was similar to what I was thinking of. So I thought, okay, this might be useful, at least for me. So I built it and I just shared it online, and people thought it was very, very useful. And yeah, since then, like so it started as just like an initial tracker that only captured 10 or so countries, but now it captures every country in the world. And when I say every country, I mean like every island, every territory, like every piece of land is captured in the tracker. And I basically summarized the AI legal positions. And it also now has a lot of new side features like a live news feed, a AI governance template library, a feature that can compare jurisdictions. And also recently, I've released an API to allow people to access the underlying data of my tracker, and also an insights analytics dashboard that kind of shows you trends and stats of the world of AI regulation in very cool infographics and charts. It's been probably one of my longest long-running projects, I'd say, and it's something that I really enjoy. I just really like this whole field. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it really resonates with that. A lot of people listening, they may be tinkering in the blockchain space or tinkering in AI because you've got more tools and it's easier to do these things now. But there's still definitely a learning curve when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I think that, given that you've got the day job and you've got these tools, it's almost like a portfolio, right? Like you bring these things in that make you more valuable as what you provide when people want to work with you as part of the business as well as the business. So I think it's always interesting that people should look to build out their portfolios. And funny that you mentioned that this was something that was just notes in a diary, and look at what it's become. I hope people people probably are scrambling to their diaries right now and looking at any kind of notes that they've got. And LinkedIn, you said that you started posting it there. You're a LinkedIn top voice now. So I think it's really testament to the value and the quality of what you put out, not just in your early posts on this topic, but in terms of what you've continually delivered in terms of the updates. So I'd love to, dive into that a bit more, and we'll come back to that in a bit. But I think what's important as well is that you did this, you've really grown a community. And speaking of like the LinkedIn top voice thing, they don't just give that to anyone. They give it to people that are consistently providing niche, powerful expertise in these areas that they think are useful, AI being one of them. You are doing this. I mean, one, it helps your role in what you do day to day in terms of both your lawyer and your tech side of things. But what is that like to, do things for the community? And what kind of motivates you with all of that?
Yeah, that's a deep question. Like, why do I do this? I'm a fundamental believer that around access to information, and also just want to feel like, I live we live in Australia. That's a very lucky place to be in. And, there's just many things in the world there are many problems in the world that I as an individual can't necessarily fix on my own. So if there's one thing that I can do that I can just solve, just help solve or help make someone's life better, it'll just be through just access to information, just trying to collate information, especially regulations that's typically hard for startups to access, to be able to do that in a digestible format. At the end of the day, innovation, tech, that stuff that changes our lives has to start from somewhere. And it has to start from like these entrepreneurs, these startup founders who are taking that bold risk to build a startup to try to change the world their own way. And like I have huge respect for that. And for me, if there's a way that I can help try support the grassroots developers and entrepreneurs through what I build, then I feel like I'll be very satisfied with my life. And so that's sort of the underlying sort of philosophy behind whether it be LinkedIn, whether it be building the websites, or whether it be running the Dallas Science AI Association. Yeah, it's good to give back. I've been doing a lot of volunteering gigs throughout since primary. Like I've volunteered in the mental health space. I've volunteered for charities. I've volunteered in like language schools. So like something that I'm always doing something that's on a volunteering basis. At some point in my life, there's always something I'm volunteering on. This is my volunteering chapter. Yeah. I'm not sure that it's a long answer, but yeah.
No. I think it's great, man. I think the volunteering thing is really good because,
Mm.
I never saw myself as a community guy. I never saw myself as that. And then, one step leads to another, and next thing you know, you've walked 100 miles in the volunteering kind of community, and growing this. The community access that you talk about there, I think is really important because access to info is massively under. I don't know if it's undervalued. I think that there's a lot of information out there, but people need good quality information. What you're helping in organizations and what the community is getting through the global AI tracker, I think it's really useful, right? Like you can help out on both sides. It's almost like if we take a big step back by making it that it's not just you that drives it, but now others can also utilize via the API, create something else
Mm.
with it. You're inspiring like a movement in a way.
Mm.
And it makes me think, just from everything that you described, it makes me think of, and maybe I'm stealing a quote from someone, but it's like, are you more important, or is the
Mm.
problem more important? And if
Mm.
it's the latter that is the thing, then I think people will do things like what you're
Mm.
creating, which potentially has this chance to grow to be something far bigger than just you or I. So if you can inspire that, I highly encourage it. So more people are gonna definitely check this out. But let's
Yeah.
go into the detail with the API.
Yeah.
What can people do with that? Have you seen
Yeah.
anyone using it?
Yeah. I got actually quite a handful of like people signing up to use the APIs to create internal newsletters on AI regulation. One has actually created their own AI regulation track on their own website that appeals to their own readers. Another one's using it to generate reports. Another one's using it to generate like slide decks. So like the benefit of the APIs that I've gathered, not just what is the law, what is the AI law in each country, but also what are the daily news updates. So what's the regulator saying this day? What are companies doing in this day? Like it's a history of the micro developments. I think that's the key thing. I keep track of not just macro, but also micro developments. And that what helps you get a sense of the market culture. I think actually I should have said this in the previous question. Like I'm a person who really loves exploring culture. Um, by building communities, I get to meet people from across different backgrounds, just understand cultures, and that in turn, I believe understanding culture is the path to attaining wisdom. And so as part of that, like being able to track all these micro developments, you get an understanding of the market culture, what the European market values, or what they're trying to do is very different from the China market, very different from the US market. And even within the European market, the German market, the French market, all have their own differences. And to be able to understand that, it gives you like a deeper level of insight. And that insight helps you predict futures. It helps you predict what regulations are coming in the next 5 years. It helps you predict what markets are emerging. It helps you predict what's the next big boom cycle. That sort of stuff I really find fascinating. And there's a lot of like history, economics, geopolitics within this field of AI regulation, which is another reason why I love doing this, because it's not just always about AI regulation. It's something that helps me become a more global informed citizen. Yeah, it's the knowledge and that wisdom that I really like absorbing. Yeah.
Mate, I bet you'd be great at trivia and stuff like that.
I
Um,
know a lot of country flags. That's the benefit.
oh yeah, I was gonna say geography must be down pat as well. We
Yeah,
got
geography
we got
is the yeah.
We got
getting
geography, but
pretty good at that now.
I think it's really interesting what you said there about the culture because it is an interesting way to explore cultures through law and
Mm,
through how quick they are at putting in laws, how aggressive, how things change when regimes change, and by tracking that, the micro development, like you say, I think it paints a really interesting picture because, for example, like let's go to something I'm really close to, which is the blockchain side. And
yeah.
you look at like if you looked just very black and white at the history of crypto in the US, it's like bad, 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 bad. Trump gets in, good, and it's like okay, that paints a picture. It On the one hand, people might go, this is great. On the other hand, people might go, well, if he does bad things for the rest of the economy, as soon as his 4 years is up, the whole thing reverses. People don't talk about that kind of stuff. So it is interesting the culture, what leads to the laws, the EU AI Act in Europe and other things like California had the SB 1047 and all these things that a lot closer than I do. But I love that it's value add that you provide. It's not just reporting, here's an update. No, you actually put an overlay of that, of your opinions and stuff. So I think that's the real kind of value.
Actually, I'll give you one really quick example of how
Please.
language and culture leads down to legal and regulatory approaches. So AI safety and AI security. In English, they mean two different things, right? AI safety refers to mitigating the harms of an AI system, whereas AI security is like the cyber security and the technical security of the AI system. They're different words, right? And they give rise to different standards. So in the West, particularly US, English speaking countries like US, England, Australia, we tend to have the AI safety bit tends to be codified in actual regulations because it's based on consent, it's based on rights and protection. Whereas the AI security it's more in the technical operations like the ISO standards and the technical guidelines. Now, in Chinese, AI safety and security, so the words safe and security actually share the same word called anquan. So if you look at those words itself, you wouldn't know if it's saying safety or security. You have to read it in the context. And when two concepts are actually one concept in one language compared to another language, it just changes the philosophy. When you actually read Chinese regulations, they're a mix of both the high level regulatory obligations, but also the low level technical guidelines and standards, but they're all combined into one. And so, like Chinese AI regulations tend to have a mix of everything, whereas Western style AI regulations, you have to sort of distinguish them from AI standards. That's just one example where the culture and language just has a huge impact on just the regulation space. Yeah.
I think it's a very important note. It reminds me of two things. One, when Sam Altman came down to Australia, and I was very lucky to be in Melbourne.
Yeah, I remember you took a photo. So
I snapped a sneaky selfie with him. He was waiting, and I was very lucky when I landed at the airport that a mate, Mikey, said that, hey, I'm volunteering at it. Do you want to meet up with me down there before the event? And I did, and caught a cab with Craig, who runs South Start. We both helped out behind the scenes, and as a reward, we got to sit nearly front row and got to meet Sam very briefly after. He was very tired, I have to say. It's like an introvert, and you see them just being swamped by people. I'm like, I felt the pain. So I just said, I don't even want to ask you anything. Everyone else wanted a full-on conversation. I just want to say hi and thanks, quick selfie, gone. But he said something when they were doing the global tour that they learned. And one of those was around culture and wording, where saying hello is one token in English. The West, one token. But in other languages, it takes up seven. Why? Why does it have to, and so they were working on that. I don't know where they got to. I'm pretty sure there were updates of that change. But then the other thing around like wording in Japanese, my favorite thing is like the word crisis is made up of two different words that brought together become crisis, but separately is danger and opportunity on the other side. So it's just like, how you interpret these things, I think is important. And, we go, well, it's really hard, but AI is a great tool at breaking down language and providing context and semantics to understanding. It's a great translation tool. So, okay, to do better at the tech, we have to actually use the tech. Really interesting stuff there. And I'm sure that, people that want to learn more, they'll reach out to you, and we'll put your details in at the end. But I want to get into some of the techie stuff.
Mm.
You're Techie Ray for a reason, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not just a lawyer. You build in this space.
Mm.
Some things that I would love your opinions on. One of the first and foremost, and you saw this in the legal space. Your brethren that ChatGPT is out for a few months, not even half a year old already, and New York lawyers get in trouble because they use it and it hallucinates some cases. They don't check it, so there wasn't a human in the loop. That's their problem. They treated it like ChatGPT, but it's still to this day makes a lot of people fearful about hallucinations. What's your opinion on the overall like hallucinations and unreliability of AI or generative AI, if we get specific?
I think it's definitely improved a lot over the years. There are a lot of new techniques, a lot of new architectures that reduce hallucination. But fundamentally, like generative AI, all these language models are based on probabilistic calculations, right? They calculate the next best word after another. Sure, there are many like you can, a lot of layers around that to make a bit more accurate, to make the probabilities and how they choose the words more accurate. But at the end of the day, there's always that inherent risk of hallucination. But I feel like that itself has now sort of been gradually accepted by the market, and it's just a matter of like a human conduct to make sure that at the end of the day, you're the one who's in the driver's seat trying to review the outputs. Yeah, and a lot of like the processes that we see now, by design, they're there to sort of mitigate. So, like in addition to hallucination, right? There's also back then people were really concerned around privacy and confidentiality, and that was often like a big red flag that stopped organizations from adopting AI. But these days, it's sort of less and less of a issue now because by design, either there's a lot of open source models that you can just download and deploy locally, and then none of the data goes out of the organization, which then kills a lot of these privacy issues. Or a lot of the enterprise solutions, they let you deploy that model as in your own private instance within your own virtual environment, which then ensures all the data is contained internally. So a lot of design features are there to sort of mitigate these issues, and I see that being the same for hallucination. That itself will, yeah, I think, I maybe as long as we're still on a transformer architecture, I think there will always be an element of hallucination. We're still exploring different architectures, but I think it's still very much a TBC. Yeah, I think it's like the new reality in a way. Like internet, there's always going to be trolls. There's always going to be harmful content on the internet. It's impossible to eliminate that completely, right? Even with the most strict censorship, stuff will still seep through. So it's just trying to educate user culture, user behavior, all that.
Yeah, we didn't stop the internet just because there were these dark web and other sites that maybe people and jurisdictions were making illegal. For example, just because of that, it doesn't mean that we stopped progress on the internet. Neither should we stop here. And you're right, like we are reducing hallucinations, but it's like it will never really go away. And it depends, like what's a hallucination to someone. To someone else, they're like, yeah, but that's exactly what I wanted.
Like hallucination. It's also quite subjective because I remember when the first big AI, one of the big AI moments before ChatGPT was AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol, the whole Go match. And in game 2, I think the AI AlphaGo made a very novel move, which was, so today we would say it's a hallucinated move. It's a really bad move, but that move, after like 30 moves on the line, actually made sense. It connected every stone, and it is what won the game. And then that makes you think, sometimes, like, of course, there are just things where just hallucinate, just completely wrong. But in other contexts, creative contexts, research contexts, where there's no one answer, that hallucination is actually an asset.
It's a feature.
It's actually it's a feature, as an asset that helps you explore and test the limits of human knowledge. So I see hallucination actually as more of a neutral feature now. It's not always negative. It's neutral. How you use that and what context it's used in, that's what gives it its character. It's negative or positive character. But yeah.
It's just a tool. You're absolutely right at the end of the day. It's so funny how people say, "Oh, the AI is bad, the AI is good." No, you're just not use the tool is the tool. Is the tool is the tool is the tool. It's how you use it. And if you're getting the wrong, if you're not getting results, it's not a wrong thing, but it's like if you're not getting results that you want, you're just not using it correctly, or the machine or the infrastructure is not set up for you to have that success. And when you do change it, so it's funny and surprising when you see government reports like ASIC tried it and it didn't work, or Commonwealth Treasury tried Copilot and it didn't, meet their expectations. It's like, well, it sounds like a setup problem because the models do what they do. So it's not to say that everything is like nothing is bad about AI. There are certainly things we need to improve, but I think what you're saying here is there's more nuance than people really realize. And it goes to the next topic. And we see, you see the extremes of this probably when you're on LinkedIn, and especially your algorithms probably pushed a lot of AI content to you like it does for me. But you've got fear mongering on the one side is what I feel. Or I see, it's there. And on the other side, I see a lot of overhype. What are your thoughts on like both of those and getting rid of like the noise?
Yeah, like I expect that. Like it's not just AI, but blockchain, a past, crypto, metaverse. There's always going to be groups of like overhypers versus the fear mongering. So it's a constant. It's a given. I think just a matter. I feel like maybe compared to let's say blockchain and the other emerging technologies, I feel like AI really tests your critical thinking skills. I think this is the age where critical thinking is now much more important than ever. Because right now, like a lot of misinformation can be generated at a click of a button. Like look, the new AI, the text to video technologies, like they're producing really realistic looking videos. That's crazy. And so the ability to just really think carefully and just be the ability to collate different sources and apply judgment across various sources and come to your own opinion. I think that's going to be the critical skill set that everyone has to eventually learn or refine. Sure, like there are many techniques and many methods to try, what I like to call, cleaning the internet, cleaning your newsfeed to make sure you only have factual, clean content. But realistically, that's very hard. At the end of the day, it's you, right? You have to be able to evaluate sources yourself, and that might just be because I'm a lawyer and you're trained to do that. But economics, historians, teachers, it's a skill set that's applicable to everything. So yeah, like I think there's going to be a renaissance here in the way that people, yeah, this is an opportunity to be able to really upskill and elevate your wisdom and intellectual capacity here. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's almost akin to like someone going to the beach and trying to stop the sand from getting wet, and all they've got is like a towel, and obviously they're never gonna like do that because there's just too much, versus just someone that learns how to swim, right? And is able to, they don't want to be in this part, they swim to another part. And I think it's the skill, the upskilling that comes from that. And for founders, Ray, there's a lot of founders that listen to this, whether they're in blockchain or AI or any other industry, and they really just want to learn how can they make use of AI, or maybe they're trying to build something in AI. Just from all the things that you've experienced, what kind of advice would you give for founders if they were to ask you?
Yeah, I have a deep think about this because there's so many different angles you can approach. I don't want to give like generic tips. So I think number one, that for me, this is like a personal test, but I'm sure it can be applicable to anyone else. Make sure that the problem you're solving you actually care about, and it's something that you will care about even if no one cares about. So that's how I like to frame it. So, for example, my AI regulation tracker, right? There can be like it doesn't matter if no one uses it, as long as I personally find it useful, then that gives meaning to me. So a lot of I think especially in the early days when the GPT models were finally released as APIs and people can start building on top, you saw a lot of wrapper apps, just apps doing the same thing. There was a lot of, so pre-Copilot, there were a lot of summarization apps. There were a lot of like note-taking apps. A lot of these things have now been eaten up by Copilot. But when I actually talked to these people, they didn't necessarily care about the use case that they were trying to get into. They were just doing it for the sake of, jumping on the bandwagon. So like solutionism. So again, this is probably generic tip that people have heard around, making sure you care about the problem. There's market validation, but I like to put a different spin to that test, which is making sure it's something that you actually care about personally, even if you have no customers. And chances are, if you actually care about it and it matters and it's helpful to you, it's likely to be helpful to other people. And even if you have a small niche market base, if they're willing to pay for it because you know that it actually solves their needs, and that's still great. Like you achieved something. So that's the first one. The second one is to think about so this is we'll go into the legal and the technical, but a lot of things can be solved, a lot of things can be highlighted if you know where the data is going. I like to call this the follow the data rule. Whenever I have to advise on an AI project from a privacy perspective or an intellectual property perspective or whatever, I'm always looking at, okay, where does the data start and where does it end? And where does it go through? From point A to point B, what servers does it go through? Does it go to offshore? Does it go to a third-party service provider? By tracking that, you can answer 90% of the questions. Legal, technical, commercial, whatever. So if you have a deep understanding of what the data flows through, then not just AI, but really any tech startup, any software-based startup, you can be able to set yourself in a position to be able to solve these issues. Yeah. And the third one is, I think, thinking, like going back to critical skills, thinking big picture. Think about whether the use case you're building, would that still be relevant in the next 5-10 years? Unless you're in for the quick cash grab, then that's a different story. But if you're in there for a long time, really think big picture. And the best way to think big picture is to really understand the culture around you, the geopolitics around you, what's happening in the economy. Don't just focus on your own sector or the sectors beside it. Think about the big macro picture. That requires regular reading. It requires regular listening, whether it be podcast or talk to people, and open-mindedness. Yeah. And that will then help you naturally become a very much an independent, critical thinking, forward-thinking, wise entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Those are really good fundamental things. And I think that they are relevant whether you're in blockchain or AI. If people want to reach out and get in touch, I mean, they'll see the show notes here and the links and stuff, but where's the best way that people can find you?
Yeah, my LinkedIn, my Raymond Sun LinkedIn. Feel free to follow and just DM me and that's connected. Yeah.
And make sure you follow, folks, because you'll get a regular dose of, the insights that are coming from around the world of AI regulation. For now, Ray Sun, thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Cool. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me. Tech is wild and the future's untamed. Blockchain blazing, carving new lanes. AI whispers in a silicon scheme. Dreams coded deep in a mainframe dream. Algorithms dance on this digital dirt. Crypto's buzzing while the old rules hurt. From Sydney skies to the outback globe. Emerging tech is the game we throw.